And good evening. Welcome to the University of Dubuque Football Show with head coach Stan Zwiefel here on this Monday night. Thanks for tuning into our broadcast here on udspartans.com, whether you're viewing it live or here in a little while. It'll be streamed all week long, of course, and that's always available at udspartans.com. But we're going to talk about the Spartans' latest ball game here this past Saturday against an outstanding Wartburg College team, the third-ranked Wartburg Knights. The Spartans put up a great fight for 2.5 quarters of this game, and Wartburg slowly pulled away and came away with a 31-10 victory. And Coach Zwiefel, Wartburg, I mean, you tip your cap to them. They're an outstanding team, as we talked last week. A senior-laden team, a lot of fifth- and sixth-year guys on that roster, and they're building for what they think is something special there this season.
Yeah, they really are. We felt looking like they could have a team that could be a national championship contender. And, of course, we knew this game would be important for them in the following areas, that they could get home field advantage all the way to the semifinals. So that was important. The weather that we thought was going to happen never materialized. Ended up being a beautiful day over there in Waverly, about 55 to 58 degrees. We had the sun come through for about, one-third of the game, which was really, really nice. And then we had the winds weren't nearly as strong as we thought they were going to be. So the game started out, they had an opening drive, and they got down to our 8-yard line through a touchdown pass, but it got called for an illegal man downfield, and we stopped them on a 4th and 1. And then we went on a drive and kicked a field goal. Then we stopped him. We went on a drive and scored a touchdown, and we were up 10-0. And a real critical part of this game happened, Tim, at the end of the second quarter with about 3:52 left. We got just a horrendous spot, and I never complain about the officials on the radio. I just don't do it, Tim, but it was a horrendous spot that made us punt, and they end up scoring with 1:17 left in the second quarter to make it 10-0. We really felt that we got that first down, we could have, either ran out the clock or maybe scored some more points. We were really doing very well at that time, and they kind of rode that momentum into half, I thought, Tim, in very many ways. Then in the start of the third quarter, the first possession, we hit the running back, and he puts the ball on the ground, and we recover. We get one first down, and on a 4th and 3, we decided to go for it and didn't get it. And then they responded by going ahead 14-10, and we hung in there. Tim, I will say this. I thought our coordinators, Rob Huberty and on our defense and Miles Hookstead on our offense, put together a really good game plan with the staff. We executed our game plan probably as clean as we have all year, Tim, in the first half, both offensively and defensively. We're able to do some things we really felt were important and able to take advantage of what we felt would be the weaknesses, if any, that they have, Tim, and we were able to exploit a little bit of the scheme. And what ends up happening, Tim, in those games like that is you have to play that clean the entire game, because if you don't execute on 3rd and 2, you don't execute on 3rd and 3, they get the ball back, and eventually they start to wear you down, and that's exactly what happened to us. I told the team afterwards there's no such thing as a moral victory, and I was really pleased with our effort, and I told the players that. What we have to do now, Tim, is bounce back and have that same kind of effort next week.
Mm-hmm. Going back to the first half in this ball game, talking about your start, you mentioned you made that big defensive stop on the, inside the 5-yard line situation, and then, took a couple of, double-digit drives downfield, 11 plays, 67 yards, field goal of 41 yards, and then, that 10-play, 42-yard drive where you put it in the end zone, 6.5 left to go, and where you really having success being able to move the ball on that very good defense?
They are a really good defense, and one of the things we talked about, Tim, last week, we thought we had to have our short passing game There's 3 things we thought in this game for us to be competitive. Number one, we had to get the ball off our quarterback's hands, because, man, if you're 3rd and 7 and 3rd and 8, they're going to come after you, and they really create some problems with their pass rush, and their personnel and their pass rush is outstanding. So we kept him clean. He only had 1 sack, and we kept him clean. He got the ball out of his hands. And then number 2, we were able to really execute our tight end and work in some underneath zones. And Jamari Jenkins had a really nice first half. I think 3 of his passes were for first downs, completions. and we executed that part. And then we really challenged our offensive line. We were down 2 starters in that game. Whatever, that's just the way it's worked. And we were down 2 starters, and those kids really did a great job of protecting and putting ourselves in a position that we got in our rhythm passing game. And the other thing, Tim, that happened in that first half is their offense wasn't on the field like they normally were, where they just kind of wear you down with their run game and then take some shot plays, make some play action passes on you because you're getting your folks up to stop the run. So that first half couldn't have played out any better, with the exception we had to have more than 10 points. I thought 17 at half would have been significant because it changes them a little bit, being down 17-0. And again, they were able to take that miss that we had on a 3rd down and 3 and turn it into points, and 10-7 at half it went in. So I was still feeling really good because they had not yet been able to stop the plans we had implemented, but they made some nice halftime adjustments. And like I said, Tim, in this kind of game, you've got to complete passes or runs on 3rd and 3 and 3rd. You just got to do that. And if you don't do that, you put yourselves in a really difficult position.
They took their first lead with 9:23 left to go in the third quarter, then added on another score there in the third quarter to go up 17-10. So, you're sitting there going in the fourth quarter. I mean, you're still very much
absolutely
in this
Tim.
ball game. And what was the feeling going into that fourth quarter?
This is I'll tell you a couple things that happened in this game. I thought, number one, we've been really energized the last couple weeks in this. Our sideline and our players were actively involved in trying to get our team to play with whatever that motivation is that you have to have in big games. Secondly, we executed on offense and defense, which allows you to have that kind of emotion, Tim, because you're having some success. When you don't have success, it is very, very difficult to have the emotion that you want to have. And then the third thing I thought, which was really important, our guys, we played the most physical game we played this year. We played with great intensity, great enthusiasm, and that carried over. And Tim, I'm just telling you, after that game, there were a lot of people walking slow on both sides of the ball because it was such a physical football game.
The third quarter, you mentioned where Wartburg has had success is, keeping their offense on the field, and they were able to do that in the third quarter. That is where it changed. I think I saw that they had about 9.5 minutes possession time to your 5.5 minutes in that quarter. And what were they able to do? What kind of adjustments were they able to make?
I think the biggest thing that happened, Tim, we weren't able to stay on the field offensively like we had. We had 2 3rd and 2s that we were not able to convert. And, Tim, what we had to do against their defense, we were trying to throw it on 3rd and 2 and 3rd and 3 in normal situations where you'd really think that you're going to be a little bit more heavy run. And, of course, their front 7, as we talked about, Tim, they're just outstanding. So we implemented our game plan trying to get our short passing game going, and it wasn't as effective in the third quarter as it had been in the first 2 quarters. They squeezed us down a little bit. We tried to do some things to take maybe a couple shot plays on them when they squeezed down, but it just didn't work out for us in the third quarter, Tim.
You had 229 yards passing and 23 yards rushing, and
that's
a
the
lot
tail
of teams,
right there.
Yeah, a lot of teams have struggled against the run against Wartburg, obviously, but you knew going in you were a little dinged up in that running back position, and but and you still are.
Yes, it was. Yeah, we're still, and Tim, we're playing with the one healthy back out of our top 4. That's what we went in on Saturday, and that's what you play with, what you went in, and that too kind of implemented a little bit about our short passing game. We had some wide receivers that we feel are really, really good, so we put those folks in position to make plays. And then we really utilized our tight end, which I mentioned earlier with Jamari Jenkins. But those are the kind of things you got to do when you're maybe a little bit nicked up and not as healthy as you'd like to be. But that had nothing to do with what our game plan was. They just did a little bit better executing the third quarter than we did.
You mentioned Jamari. He had 8 catches, 63 yards. Wade Sheets, very productive day. Sure-handed, 11 catches, 131 yards. And so, that duo really produced for you in the pass game.
Yeah, and our other receivers contributed in great situations. And, of course, we You'd like to, I tell you every Saturday that we'd like to win the turnover battle and you'd like to win the big play battle. We only had 2 big plays of over 20 yards. I think a lot of that had to do with Wartburg's defense and us trying to get the ball out of our hands as fast as we could. So that added up. And again, I can only say, Tim, we had our opportunities in the third quarter and we were not able to execute as well as we wanted to. Now, that's Wartburg's partly responsible for that as well as we are. But again, they're a really good football team. And I'll just tell you what I told their coach after the football game. I had a chance to visit with him. I said, that defense is as impressive as the defenses that I was coaching, involved with in 2004 and 5 and 6 when we made national championship appearances. So they're a good football team. And so I thought we played very, very well. Again, there's no moral victory, but what we got to do, Tim, is get the stuff that we did well on this past Saturday and continue to do it last 4 Saturdays that we play.
So as you think about all those things, what are you really honing in on as far as that?
Yeah, I think like anything else, you put together a game plan. Our game plan for BV will be different than it was for Wartburg, just like it would be different when we played Central Loras. What you try to do is put your best players in the best position you can to make plays, and then you try to execute that during the practice week. And, Tim, one of the things I always talk about to our players is if it doesn't work on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we ain't doing it in the game. So you've got to be able to execute the game plan that we're putting together on Tuesday. And we're speaking on Monday night, obviously, Tim, and we've got a game plan together. It's going to be different than it was against Wartburg. It's going to be specific to what we think we can do against BV personnel-wise and then BV scheme-wise.
Mm-hmm. So you're 2-2 in the American Rivers Conference now after suffering that loss. Before we move on and talk about homecoming week in the Buena Vista Beavers, any final thoughts about this contest from you?
It sure hurt, Tim. It does hurt. And I've had my success rate against Wartburg is not very enviable. Let me tell you that. They've been the one team that's really had my number, and of course they've been
had a lot of people's number.
pretty good football team. But you put all the time and effort, and I really thought maybe the plans we had on Saturday might have been our best plans that we had against that scheme in the 4 or 5 years that they've been pretty dominant in the league. So you put it behind you. I told the team, if you think anybody's feeling sorry for you, you're out of your mind. We've had more than our share of injuries. We're 2-4. We're 2-2 in the league. We expect to be 3-2 at the end of Saturday's game and 3-4, and then take the next game. There's 40% of the season left, Tim. It feels like it's game 8 or 9, but it isn't because our bye was so early. And so we've got so much football left. And my job is to make the players understand the significance of the games coming up and to play their best as they can in the games they have an opportunity to play.
So you turn the page and you look like we just pointed out, game number 7 on the schedule is you've got Buena Vista coming in for homecoming this weekend on the University of Dubuque campus, as that'll be a 2 o'clock kickoff at Chalmers Field. And Coach, you've been around homecoming for a long time. Not just here, but it's a big deal in the life of the campus.
It's wonderful for the alumni, I think. That's who I really think homecoming's for. Mm-hmm. One of the things I like best about homecoming has nothing to do with the stuff going on from Monday to Friday. I really don't like that stuff. But what I really like is we always have a huge amount of players that come back, stick their head in the office before the game, say hi, and that's always good. And it's good to see those players come back and be on campus. And, of course, you want to do well for those folks. What you don't want to do is get caught up in all the activities that take place during the week prior to homecoming. But homecoming is great for the alumni, great for the parents. I think it's a way for the university to get reconnected with their alumni. And I think the most important thing is, the football game's kind of like the icing on the cake, right? You do all that other stuff on Friday or Friday night or whenever that stuff's going on. I don't know and I don't care. But for us to play a good football game to represent the alumni in our own football program, I think is very important to the university.
As far as student-related activities, how does the football team?
You'd have to go that way.
How does the football team fit into the homecoming
let me
weekend.
tell you this now. The only night they have off this week is tonight, and there's not a lot going on tonight. We'd like him to get some extra sleep, like to do a little bit of academics, and then watch the Monday night football game. Tomorrow we have practice, and they have their study table from 6 to 9. Not much activity going on for them on Tuesday night. On Wednesday night, they'll have some meetings after practice, and on Thursday night, back to study table. So we really tell them they ought to be celebrating homecoming Saturday after the game and out in the parking lot with the alumni and their parents and their former teammates. That's really a part of it. And I think the rest of the student population, they have a lot of activities, Tim, going on, which I think is always good for campus. We'll have more students, on this game than we do any other time, because more students tend to stay on campus during homecoming. So all that stuff is good. And then I look at the weather. Looks like the weather is going to be outstanding, like Beautiful. A mid-September type of Saturday. And so all those things are really good for the most important part for the university. But that's not the most important part for us and the team. The game on Saturday at 2 o'clock is what we're gearing up towards.
And that's against the Buena Vista Beavers coming in, and they're coming in on a high note. They got their first win of the season last week in defeating Luther College 14-10. 14-10.
We looked at that film, and they're going to have a lot of emotion. When a team struggles, and they have struggled, Tim, they would say that themselves. But now you get a little bit of taste of a win, and you're coming to a team that's 2-4. So I'm sure they're thinking, hey, they're the same football team that we are. We're 1-5 or whatever they are. They're only got one more win than us. So I think they're going to come with some thoughts they can win this game. What we have to do is, first of all, match that emotion intensity. I talk about that all the time, that early part of it. But we got to play our game, do the things that we always do, and I think we'll have a really good opportunity to be successful.
Beavers have had their struggles, like you pointed out, scoring just 12.5 points a game, giving up 41.5, and obviously offensively struggling yardage-wise and giving up yards. So there's a lot of things that you look at there that you can take advantage of, but they're coming in momentum-wise, so you got to be careful there.
Tim, statistically, they are not the best team in the conference. They've given up a lot of points, and they aren't scoring many points. They're giving up a lot of first downs. They aren't getting many first downs. They got a lot of turnovers. They ain't getting many turnovers. That's how that stuff goes when you're like that. They have a quarterback, the Herrera kid, who's the brother of two of the Herrera kids that played for us. And so he's their quarterback, and he's got a really lively arm. He's got a chance. If you remember last year, Tim, they played a great first half against us out there.
Yeah, they were up at halftime, right?
27-21 maybe, 21-17. And then in the second half, we played a lot better. But, you can never take any team, whether they're 1-5 or 5-1, you got to play that Saturday, that game. That's when it counts. All the previous things doesn't count. We do think that we have a chance to have some success by matching up our scheme and players against their scheme and players. But it won't work unless we execute those two things. And that execution comes down to being, how focused are you on practice week? How intense are you on practice week? How do you do those things? And of course, playing every play. Because they'll make some plays on us. They'll make some plays offensively and defensively. A team always does. How you respond to that next play will be really important.
I was looking back at their win a little bit, and looks like they got their running game going a little bit last week with a back that can catch the ball and also run the ball.
He's really their probably go-to player. He's their leading rusher, I believe, and their leading receiver.
Amon Alanes, I believe.
And they move him all over. He plays slot, he plays tailback, plays a little bit of wide too, second tight end. Sometimes they'll actually put him in a tight end spot. So what I think they're trying to do, Tim, when you watch him, is try to get him matched up against a lesser athlete and put him in a situation where maybe a linebacker's got him man-to-man, or they do some things to try to hide how they're going to get him the ball. And as I said, the rare kid can hurt you. He's got a lively arm. He can throw it really hard. If you give him enough time, he will hurt you. One of the things we want to do is we want to try to get some pressure on him and force him to do some things that he's not comfortable in the pocket. And we do want to make them be right-handed or left-handed, whichever way you look at that. We want to take away what we think their best is and make them do something that they don't like to do as much. So it's Monday. We've looked at, as you move along in the season, Tim, you get so many games to watch. We've got 6 games on them that we're watching, and boy, that's a lot of information. Put it in the computer, spit it back out, then you go back through it and look at personnel. How does our guy match up about that guy? How can we put our player in a position to get it matched up against somebody else? So all that part we're talking about today as we talk about, Tim, we spent yesterday from 3 o'clock on to now getting those kind of things down on paper so you can look at it and then kind of refining it. But one of the issues that I think is most important for us is that we execute our game plan with intensity and emotion. Now, I have never been this nicked up in 50 years of coaching. We are nicked up like hard to believe, but so what? So now another kid gets an opportunity to go out there and play his best game, and so we're hoping we can get those folks to really respond to the situation and put us in a position to win.
Buena Vista defensively, what are they going to try to do against you?
They're running Wartburg's scheme. And you can run Wartburg's scheme, but you better have Wartburg's players to do it. And so the good news for us is, Tim, we just prepped for Wartburg's scheme the whole last week. So there is not going to be a big learning curve for us, which is always good for your offensive linemen, because the biggest scheme that changes from week to week is your blocking schemes up front. And so when you have to make those adjustments, it takes a little bit more extra time. Now, that's good for us, and we really still feel so good about our skill guys. Tim, we feel like we've got the top 4 or 5 receivers in the conference, and, overall, statistically, that bears itself out. Casey's playing outstanding football for us now, coming from being a backup to the start of the last 3 games and really playing well, and he had a really nice game Saturday. He only took 1 sack, no picks, threw it 52 times, all those things that we think he can do, he performed for us. So now we're going to try to implement that game plan, but match up our personnel against BV's personnel. So it'll be really fun. I think one of the biggest things about that is, like every week is, Tim, can you be clean? We had that was the game we've been least penalized this season on Saturday, so we hope we can, piggyback on that and play cleaner football on Saturday. And I mean clean. I mean, don't have a assignment error, don't have an execution error, don't have a penalty that shouldn't be a penalty. Now, you're going to hold sometimes, you're going to do all those things, but you want to minimize those as much as you can.
You mentioned, and we know you're nicked up. Any chance you're going to get a little healthier by this weekend?
Well, we all start praying today. Maybe something will happen, but this has been really something, Tim. Not only the physical injuries, but we've had mono hit 2 of our players. We've had some, everybody gets the crud and so forth. You always hope it doesn't take place during the course of the season. But, yeah, we played in Wartburg's game with 7 of our starters on both sides of the ball not playing in that game. Well, so what? Played really well. So you got it. That's why the guys come to school. The second string guy wants to get an opportunity, and here we go. And some of our injuries are soft tissue injuries. Some of our I think we talked about this. I've never had a rash of broken hands like I've seen on this team, 6 of them. We've had a couple knee injuries. We've had 4 knee injuries that have put kids out for the season. It's it's one of those years. But you know what? BV don't care, and we sure as heck don't care. We're going to get number 2 ready, and here we go. So yeah, I'm excited about the game on Saturday. I really am.
Yeah, you mentioned you won last year 46-16, but took the second half to do that, and you've won 4 straight in the series. But prior to that, the previous 5 to 6 very competitive games decided by a score or less. And
they were always so dang high scoring too. Yeah. The one that I recall is back maybe in 15 or 14 when we went ahead near the end of the game, 38-36, and then they threw that little receiver, and he scored a touchdown to beat us with about 6 seconds left in the 4th quarter. But they've been really good games, and BV traditionally has always had really explosive offenses, and really explosive against everybody, big play capability. So we got to guard against that. It hasn't happened for them yet, Tim, this year. That doesn't mean it won't happen on Saturday, but when you look at the history of things, they have been really competitive games, fun games. They've really been fun games to coach in as well as watch.
Coach, before we let you go, any final thoughts here on this homecoming weekend as you get ready for the Buena Vista Beavers?
Boy, am I really excited about a great weather game with a great crowd. So I hope everybody comes out and gets a chance to support us.
Yeah, there's all kinds of activities, as you pointed out, all week long, and certainly welcome all the alumni that are going to be back here and hopefully enjoying the Spartan victory at the end of the homecoming festivities. Coach, we'll let you go, and we'll see you on Saturday.
We'll see you then.
Jim Clore and I will have the call here on udspartans.com along with the video stream, so we'll look forward to talking with you this Saturday. And, again, kickoff 2 o'clock at Chalmers Field, and then Coach Zwiefel and I will be back here next Monday night at 5 o'clock to break it down and talk about the Spartans' next opponent. So thanks a lot for joining us here on the UD Football Show with Coach Stan Zwiefel, and have a great Monday night.